Hi everyone, I want to walk you through a PDO lifting thread case that I did recently on a patient that actually flew here to come see me for lifting threads specifically, which is just a great way to show you how good these results are with this technique and VSoft products. So I am numbing her. I had already marked her up when I had her sitting fully upright. But I wanted to numb her for the most amount of comfort, and I did lido and epinephrine at the insertion site. And then here I am going in with an 18 gauge and just trying to make the porthole and make my life a little bit easier when it comes to injecting. So I did the dirty work, if you will, pretty early on. So I am just creating that space to be able to go in with the cannula and numb her. Now this part can be a tad bit pinchy just because, as you guys know, lidocaine does burn, and the patient's not numb yet. This is the product to numb them. So it does take a little bit of time to get in the right plane, make them comfortable. And I don't want you to, speed through this process, but trying to make it as quick and pain-free for them as possible is going to be huge. So here I am. You can see she's kind of pinchy and feeling the burn, but she's just breathing through it. And that was the worst one. That's the first one. She has no numbing in her system yet. And here I am just finding the right plane. I'm going a little bit deeper because it looked a little too superficial there initially. So I'm going a little deeper with her, and I am going to numb this plane too. You can see I have 2 lines there. Now this is to show that I might do 2 threads in that site, just because as you're starting to treat, you can take the marker off. You can do a ton of different things to wipe that away. And as you're moving and tightening those threads, you can sometimes forget what your plan was. So I always literally mark exactly where I want to go, where I end, and what I want to avoid, which is why you can see that X there for the facial artery. So I did not numb her jawline yet. I always do that one at the end. And I'm going in with my nasolabial fold thread now, which is sometimes the hardest to get into, especially if a patient has a big mid-face or pretty prominent cheekbones or a pretty big deficit in the nasolabial fold. I also want to go in now for the marionette line. And the first thing that I do, I know I just told you guys that I put 2 lines there because I might do 2 threads. But I don't know if I'm going to add the second one until I do the full face. So then I go back and reassess the patient and try to figure out, does she need another one? Is it necessary? Is this going to give a great result? So you can see she's just literally focused on breathing through the whole treatment and making herself comfortable. And I just tell patients whatever works for them and gets them in the right mind space that they're comfortable is what I want them to do. So here she is, working through it, breathing, and we all have our own kind of thing to get us through any discomfort. But breathing and, exhaling and being in your own head is what makes patients get through it. But it honestly is a very pain-free procedure. They are completely numbed, very comfortable. And honestly, she even said, I know it seems like she's breathing deeply and struggling, but she was like, this was a very pain-free treatment. It wasn't bad at all. So keep that in mind. Like, even though patients are breathing and it might make you a little uncomfortable as an injector because you're so used to patients being comfortable 24/7, talk to them, have a conversation with them, ask them how they're doing, if they need a break, if they, need a second for the numbing to kick in, just kind of ask them what they're feeling. And that's super important as an injector too, because you can get a little bit uncomfortable. At least I do when the patient's uncomfortable. I always want them to be super comfortable. So anytime I see like deep breathing, I'm like, are you okay? Do you need a second? So here I am actually going back into that original opening, and I'm adding one more to the nasolabial fold. Actually, I sat her up and just kind of reassessed, and I thought that she needed one more to the nasolabial fold on this side. This was her worst side as well, so keep that in mind. Look how good her pool is. This was her worst side, so I did have to use a couple more threads on this side than I did the other. And that is a-okay when that happens. That's totally to be expected, but just keep that in mind. That's why I am going back and doing the threads like that. So we did 4, 5, 6 on this side, and we actually did 5 on the other side. So a total of 11 threads. And look how snatched her jawline is. Her nasolabial fold is picked up. Obviously, you get an immediate little result when it comes to the thread lift, like lifting the nasolabial fold, and you can see the corners of her mouth becoming upturned. But best results are going to be 3 to 6 months after the fact when that collagen and elastin starts to stimulate. So I just pulled everything a little bit tight, not too much pressure. I don't want to waste too much of the thread, and I don't want to break that thread either. But here I am just trimming one at a time. I never say to do any more than that. And she's super comfortable. And this is when we're just talking about the treatment, how she's doing. This was her first side, worst side. And then I told her I'm going to set her up and we're going to take a look at everything and kind of reassess. So I'm just working on making sure that everything looks visually okay. And I put a lot of threads in there. So if you have to move things around, you're going to have to give a little bit of pressure in order to, relax that thread if it's pulling or anything like that. So I'm just kind of working it around. I have 5 threads in that site. So keep in mind, it's going to be a little bit harder to work around, but she's going to have such a beautiful result immediately, but also in 3 to 6 months. So I'm very excited about that for her. And I'm just, putting some pressure, moving things around. She actually doesn't have a lot of crazy bruising, which was great. She had preloaded with some arnica tablets, 3 to 5 times a day, 3 to 5 tablets. So a total of normally 15 a patient's taking for a couple days prior. And I saw her actually 2 days later and she looked incredible. No bruising. We also did some filler this day. So she really didn't have a lot of bruising for how much we did. But look how great her skin looks. Obviously, she's a little full with the lidocaine, but her results are incredible in terms of the nasolabial fold, the face overall, and you can see she's so happy already, and that was her worst jowl, her worst nasolabial fold. So I'm just talking her through what I see, post-care, everything like that before I do the other side. So look at her jawline and look at her neck. I mean, great results there. Obviously, she's full and swollen, and that's totally to be expected. She's lifting her brows, joking with us. But this was all level 1 technique that we did. I'm just putting some arnica on her. So if you have any interest in learning how to do PDO lifting threads, this is all level 1 stuff. So this is what we teach in our PDO level 1 on 1 to 2 patients. And we kind of walk you through how to assess, inject, post-care, everything of that sort.